Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up a file that feels deceptively simple on the surface. But the deeper you look, the messier and more fascinating it gets.
Right.
We are looking at the intersection of video games and
Well,
civic duty.
it's that age-old promise of edutainment, isn't it?
Exactly. And usually when we hear educational gaming, let's be honest, we think of typing tutors or math blasters.
Oh, yeah.
We think of chocolate-covered broccoli. It's good for you, but the chocolate's usually cheap and the broccoli is soggy and nobody really wants to eat it.
It's a harsh metaphor, but historically, it's not inaccurate.
Right. But today's question is a bit sharper than that. We aren't just asking if a game can teach you to type.
Yeah.
We're asking, can a video game actually make you a better citizen? Can you take a dry, complex, frankly boring concept like telecommunications infrastructure, gamify it, and genuinely change how a person feels about the world?
It's a massive question. It moves beyond learning into, persuasion.
And to answer it, we aren't just looking at modern theory
Yeah.
or speculating about the metaverse. We're going back
Way back.
to a very specific, very comprehensive set of experiments conducted at Orange Labs. That's the R&D arm of France Telecom. This all took place between 2008 and 2009.
And that context is really important. 2008, the iPhone is brand new. The App Store is still an infant. We're in the golden age of the Flash game on the web.
Oh, I remember that era. You'd go to a website, wait for the little bar to load,
Yep.
and play something for 5 minutes while avoiding work.
Exactly. That was the landscape.
Yep.
And these researchers, led by Quentin Alvarez and Valerie Maffiolo, they wanted to know if serious games, so games designed for a purpose other than pure entertainment, if they actually had a tangible impact on the public.
And they didn't just write a survey. They essentially, they threw everything at the wall to see what stuck. They ran a global contest, they built their own game studio, and they created a massive play and rate panel to track all the data.
It was a 3-phase stress test of the entire medium. And spoiler alert for you listening, the results were not what they expected. They found that impact is a lot harder to engineer than just adding a leaderboard to a lesson plan.
Okay, let's start with phase one then, the contest. They launched the User-Generated Serious Games Contest, or UGSG. What was the pitch here?
The pitch was basically crowdsourcing. They thought, we're a telecom giant. Let's just ask the world's students, indie developers, to make games for us.
Okay.
And they gave them 3 themes: enriching knowledge, being an eco-citizen, and fighting isolation.
So they put a 5,000 euros as a prize and just waited for the magic to happen.
And they waited.
It didn't go well.
It was a fascinating failure. First, the geography was weird. They had a massive spike in registrations from Poland, of all places.
Why Poland?
Purely because a local marketing agency there did a great job promoting the platform Whose Game, where the contest was hosted. So they had the eyeballs, but the actual submissions, very, very low.
Why was the barrier to entry so high? I mean, 5,000 euros is decent money, especially back in 2008.
It was the serious part of serious games. It stumped people. Most participants did what the researchers called recycling.
Recycling.
They took standard arcade templates, like a shooter or a platformer, and just slapped a loose educational label on it.
So instead of shoot the aliens, it's like shoot the pollution asteroids.
Exactly. It wasn't organic at all. It was superficial, and there was this massive demographic skew right away. Only 16% of the candidates were women.
16%.
Yeah. So right out of the gate, the creators of these educational tools were already a very narrow slice of the population.
So the researchers are sitting there probably panicking.
Yeah.
They need proof that games can influence people, and all they're getting are these generic Space Invaders clones.
Right.
But looking at the notes, this is where the story gets really interesting. They actually found their proof of impact in the failures.
Specifically in the games they had to ban.
The banned games.
Yeah.
Okay, this sounds like an urban legend.
It does, but it's well documented. There were 2 submissions that the legal and branding teams at Orange just had to disqualify.
Okay.
One was called Natural Phone Squealer.
Natural phone squealer. Please tell me that involves squirrels.
It does. It was a Space Invaders clone. You played as a squirrel in a forest. But the inviters weren't aliens. They were the logos of mobile operators. Orange, SFR, booze descending to pollute your home.
And you had to shoot them down with nuts.
You had to shoot them down with nets. It was this biting little satire, a squirrel fighting big telecom.
Wow.
And the second word.
The second one was even more aggressive. It was called Orange Metallic. In that one, the player literally shot technicians who were trying to install antennas.
I can see why the corporate sponsors at France Telecom weren't exactly rushing to hand that creator a check for 5,000 euros.
Here's money for creating a game about shooting our employees. No.
Definitely not.
But here's the key insight. These games, even though they were banned from the contest, they circulated internally among the employees at Orange. And people were furious. Furious.
Yeah. Employees felt personally attacked, they were upset, they were discussing it in the break rooms. It caused a huge stir.
So, the games worked.
Precisely. The expert analysis noted that this negative reaction was the first tangible proof that the medium had real power. The message, even though it was an anti-corporate, unwanted message, was received loud and clear. It provoked a genuine emotional response.
That's a great paradox.
Yeah.
The only games that successfully moved the needle emotionally were the ones attacking the people who were running the study.
It suggests that impact isn't always about learning a fact.
It's about feeling a stake in the outcome.
Impact is emotional, not just intellectual. That was the first big lesson. But since they couldn't exactly publish an award for best game that insults our staff, they had to pivot.
Right. Enter phase 2, the studio phase. If
Yeah.
you want something done right, do it yourself.
Exactly. They realized amateurs just weren't going to cut it. They needed to control the quality and the message. So the researchers developed 3 specific titles internally.
And these weren't just random, right? They were designed to test different mechanics and demographics.
Totally. Let's walk through them because they're pretty distinct. The first one was Mind Up.
Mind Up.
This was their attempt at the enriching knowledge theme. It was a logic game, but with a very clever psychological hook. They introduced a mascot named Stime.
Stime. Was he, like, a helpful paperclip?
It looks like you're trying to learn about bandwidth.
Far from it. Stime was a jerk. His entire personality was based on insulting the player's intelligence. He would taunt you, telling you that you weren't smart enough to solve the riddle.
So they weaponized stubbornness. I love it.
It worked. It triggered this challenge response. The gameplay actually forced you to use search engines to find answers about telecom concepts, what they call data gaming.
So you were learning about bandwidth and frequencies just to prove this little cartoon character wrong.
Exactly. Very clever. The second title was HutNet Island.
This was their eco-citizen game. The premise is a bit catastrophic. You're on a tropical island, the sun is expanding due to global warming, and the village is going to burn.
The stakes are high.
Very high. And the only way to save the village is to convince everyone to stop using physical paper and switch to digital telecommunications.
Save the world, send an email. Very on brand for a telecom company.
It was a strategy game, all about speed and clicking efficiency. You had to convert huts to digital before the resource meter ran out.
And the third one. This one seems the most complex.
Yeah, Flee the Skip. This was the fighting isolation game. It was a multiplayer platformer set inside a high-tech dumpster.
A dumpster.
A metaphor for social exclusion. You played as these discarded mobile phones characters named Clap, Hack, and Brain.
Right.
The goal was to escape the dumpster before the crusher turned on. But because it was multiplayer, you physically could not win alone. You had to boost each other over obstacles.
Forced cooperation.
Exactly. So they released these 3 games into the wild on the open internet to see what would happen. And the data they got back revealed some hard truths about the internet in 2009.
Truths that I think probably still hold up today.
I think so too. The first big finding was about language.
Right.
Huge. Remember, this is a French company. They released versions in French and English. The English versions got nearly 25 times more plays.
25 times. That's not a small margin. That is a completely different stratosphere.
It is. We're talking 40,000 plays versus maybe 1,500 for the French versions over a 6-month period. Even on French gaming portals, the English versions were clicked more often.
Wow. So English is just the default setting of the gaming internet.
It really is. If you want a serious message to spread, you cannot limit yourself to a local language, even if the issue feels local.
They also mapped out the life cycle of these games, which I found fascinating for anyone in, marketing.
Yeah, the buzz and erosion model. You get a massive spike right when it's released. That's the buzz. Then traffic drops consistently over 5 to 15 months until it hits a floor.
A floor?
Yeah, it never quite hits 0, but it becomes this low, steady baseline, unless you get picked up by a distributor.
Right, right.
They compared it to another game called Monster Crunch. Every time a new gaming portal hosted it, boom, a new spike. It proved distribution is just as important as the game design itself.
You can't just build it and they will come.
No, you have to build it and then relentlessly email portal managers.
Now, I want to touch on the cultural differences they found, because this feels like it's bordering on stereotyping, but the data actually backed it up.
It did. They saw distinct preferences by region.
Yeah.
So, Mind Up the Brain teaser with the insulting mascot
Yeah.
performed exceptionally well in the US. Americans apparently liked that direct challenge. But Hut Net Island, the resource management and efficiency game, that was a massive hit in Germany.
You can't make this stuff up. Germany favoring the efficiency simulation.
The data doesn't lie. But the most profound data, and I think this is really the core of our discussion, came from Flee the Skip, that multiplayer dumpster game.
This leads us to the third phase, the gender gap.
Yep. This was the beta test. They brought people into the lab to watch them play.
Okay.
They gathered 16 people. A small sample, but really deep observation. They wanted to see if the message of solidarity and fighting exclusion was actually getting through.
And it turns out men and women were playing two completely different games.
Drastically different. The men focused almost entirely on the gameplay mechanics. They saw it as a skill challenge, a puzzle to be optimized.
Right.
And because it was cooperative, they viewed the weaker players as a frustration.
The weak link problem.
Exactly. One male tester was recorded saying, "A weak player drags everyone down." They were annoyed they couldn't just win by being good individually. They wanted to speedrun the empathy.
That's brutal. You're ruining my win rate with your social exclusion. So what about the women?
The women focused on the message. They engaged with the collaboration, they talked to each other, they helped each other over the walls, and crucially, in the post-game interviews, 85% of the women correctly identified the theme of solidarity and exclusion.
85%.
And the men?
Only 11%.
11. That implies the message was effectively invisible to most of the male players.
It was invisible because they were looking past it. The expert analysis here is so important. Men treated the experience as a competition to be won. Women treated it as a social experience to be understood.
That's a profound disconnect. If you're a designer trying to teach empathy and you make the game too gamey, the traditional gamer demographic, mostly men in this context, might just optimize the fun right out of the lesson.
Precisely. The serious part of the serious game gets lost in the mechanics. The men saw a platformer, the women saw a story about helping people escape.
Which brings us to the final phase of the experiment. They weren't satisfied with just 16 people. They wanted a statistically significant sample. Right, so they built the Serious Games Opinions website, the SGO. This was the play and rate phase. They recruited a panel of 121 testers, split evenly between men and women, ages 16 to 76.
I love that they included the older demographic. We often pretend video games just stop at age 35.
And that's where they busted the first myth. The idea that gamers are just kids was dead wrong. Men aged 35 to 54 in their panel were heavy players. They were logging serious hours.
But this is where we run into the self-reporting paradox, and I think this is my favorite part of the whole study.
Yes. The men confidently identified themselves as regular gamers. They wore that badge proudly.
Of course.
But when the actual testing started on these serious games, the men had much higher abandonment rates.
They quit.
They quit. They got bored. They got frustrated. Meanwhile, the women, especially in that 25 to 54 age range, often identified as casual or even non-gamers.
And yet...
They played longer, they stuck with the tests, and they finished the assignments.
So the non-gamers were actually the more reliable players for this medium. Why do you think that is?
Well, it suggests that the gamer identity comes with baggage. A self-identified gamer judges a title against, say, Call of Duty or World of Warcraft.
Right.
They look at a Flash game about ecology and say, the graphics are bad, the controls are floaty, I'm out.
Whereas the non-gamer women were looking at it differently.
They were more open to the utility of the game. They were asking, what is this trying to tell me, rather than, is the frame rate high enough? They had more patience for the message because they weren't comparing it to a blockbuster entertainment product.
To visualize all this, the researchers plotted all the games. They tested 11 in total on a matrix. One axis was fun, and the other was message retention.
The fun versus serious matrix, it gives us a really clear picture of what works and what doesn't.
Let's look at a famous example. Darfur is dying.
Right. This is a very, very serious game about the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. You play a refugee who has to fetch water while avoiding militia patrols.
It's stressful just hearing about it.
It is. It's harrowing. The study found it had incredibly high message retention. 88% of players understood exactly what the problem was.
So high educational value.
Very high, but a very low fun factor. It was a bad game. but a good lesson. It felt like work, and if you aren't forced to play it, you probably won't.
Okay, then you had the opposite end of the spectrum, like the McDonald's video game.
Right. This is a satire where you run the entire fast food corporation. You have to destroy rainforests for cattle, bribe officials, pump cows with hormones. It's complex and engaging.
Did it work as a lesson?
It had mixed results. It was high on fun, but the message was so complex that some people just enjoyed the simulation of being a corrupt CEO. They kind of missed the critique because they were having too much fun running the business.
So, was there a holy grail? A game that managed to be both fun and clear with its message?
There was one standout in the study, a game called Energuy.
Energuy. Sounds like a battery mascot from the 90s.
It was simple. The goal was to reduce energy consumption in an apartment. You had a frantic character running around, and you just had to click to turn off lights and appliances. It had visuals, humor, and very simple mechanics.
And the result?
It hit the sweet spot, high fun factor, high message retention. It proved you don't have to be boring to be educational, but you also don't have to be overly complex.
So if we pull back and look at this entire study, from the failed contest to the gender divide in the dumpster to this matrix, what's the headline here?
The headline is that serious games, they do work, but they are incredibly fragile.
Fragile in what way?
You can have a profound message that fails because the game is boring, like Darfur is dying for some players. Or you can have a fun game where the message becomes completely invisible, like the men playing Flee the Skip. It's a razor-thin wire you have to walk.
And it seems like impact is messy. It's not just, I learned a fact.
Absolutely not. Remember the angry employees in Phase 1? That was impact. The women feeling solidarity in the dumpster game? That was impact. It's emotional.
One thing I'm stuck on is the audience question. The study clearly showed women were better at decoding the serious message. They were more patient with the medium.
Which is ironic, right? Because the gaming industry, especially back in 2009, but even today, is often so heavily marketed towards men.
It leads to a bit of a provocative thought for me. If we're designing games to save the world, to teach empathy, ecology, human rights, are we designing them for the wrong audience if we only focus on traditional gamer mechanics?
That is the billion-dollar question. If you make the game competitive to attract gamers, you might lose the message. If you assume your player is a 20-year-old guy who just wants to win, you might miss out on the 40-year-old woman who is actually willing to listen to what you have to say.
It really makes you rethink the whole definition of a gamer.
It does. The casual audience might actually be the most serious audience we have. They're the ones willing to engage with the content, not just the code.
So the chocolate-covered broccoli can work, but maybe we need to stop trying to sell it to people who only want candy.
Or maybe we just need to make sure the broccoli's actually cooked well before we dip it.
Fair point. That wraps up our deep dive into the serious game experiment. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important player isn't the one with the highest score, but the one who understands why they're playing in the first place.
Well said.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.